Get ready to get sticky. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Corona Crush is creating Jewish couples always. Join the Facebook group. Just search Corona Crush and look out for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. They're 100% free and 100% Jewish.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sticky Situations. I'm your host, Rachel. Can you stop laughing?
Keep it. It's funny.
This doesn't happen usually.
We're live in studio with two guests.
Okay. I'm your host, Rachel, which you already know because I'm unforgettable. Everyone, whatever platform you're listening on, go follow, subscribe. If your platform allows for it, go give us a 5-star rating and a glowing review. Oh, also, while you're at it, go like Sticky Situations page on Facebook. Follow Sticky Situations Pod on Instagram. Follow Sticky Situations Pod on TikTok. Go join the Corona Crush group and look for my posts. And if you want to be a guest on my podcast, apply to be a guest. They're in all of my posts. Also, the link is in the Facebook page. That's probably the only thing that the Facebook page is good for. And also in the Instagram page somewhere. You can also just send me a DM at Sticky Situations Pod on Instagram or send me an email at stickysituationspod@gmail.com. If you'd like to date me or any of my single guests, you can reach out the same ways. You can, again, either DM Sticky Situations Pod on Instagram or send an email to stickysituationspod@gmail.com, or their applications. You can find them on the socials. You guys know the drill by now. It's been a while. You've been listening for a while, so you know the drill. Okay. We're going to get right into it today because I have an extra special guest. Everyone, please welcome to the podcast my friend Nathaniel. Nathaniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. So, Nathaniel, before we get into it, I'm hoping Nathaniel has some great stories. He wouldn't really give anything away when we were talking before, but before we get into it, Nathaniel, I'm going to ask you the questions that I always ask my guests before they tell their stories, just so my listeners can get an idea of your dating pool or what was your dating pool. So can you please tell my listeners your age, location, relationship status, and religious denomination?
Yeah, for sure. I am 30. I'm based in New York, at least for now, but I plan on moving in a few months. Recently engaged. I got engaged about a month ago. Thank you so much. I got engaged about a month ago, just a few days after we met.
Yeah.
In fact. So maybe being on this podcast or being invited to it makes miracles or puts good fortune upon others. I am modern Orthodox, but also very tolerant and open to other sects of Judaism and beyond Judaism.
Also, just another plug to come on as a guest on the podcast. As Nathaniel mentioned, he got engaged like right after we met and I asked him to come on the podcast. Some of my other previous guests have also gotten engaged since coming on the podcast. So it's a segula, which I don't really know what a segula is in English, the English word for it, but
it's like a good version of an omen.
Yeah, like an omen kind of, even though Jews don't really believe in that. But the Jewish version of that, to get engaged, maybe. So come be a guest on the podcast. Okay, so Nathaniel, should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay, do you want to start off with your stories? He also told me he has questions for me. So, I always love that. I'm excited for that.
Definitely. I'm sorry to say that I actually wasn't too familiar with the podcast at the time that we met. I have since done some research, but I had never been asked to be a guest on a podcast, and immediately just was thinking about, okay, what are the criteria for being invited on as a guest? Was there something that we met at a shul event with a really great presence of young professionals at a shul in New York, and I was just wondering if there's something in particular that piqued your interest, or in general how you decide to bring guests on, whether they are special in some way in our community and beyond.
So, in general, I'm open to having most people on the podcast as long as they have dating stories or they're an interesting person. Honestly, if they have dating stories, because that's what the podcast is all about, or good dating perspectives. I asked you to be on the podcast specifically because of the role you play in our Jewish community. And Nathaniel can get more into that. But at the Shabbat that I met him, he was actually performing. So I was like, oh, that would be cool to get somebody who's involved in what Nathaniel does on the podcast. Just to, I like to dip my toes. Like, yeah, I like everyone coming on. Anyone who I meet at shul or literally anywhere, or people who DM me, or people who fill out the application from Facebook, people from Corona Crush. I'm very open, as you guys know, to having anyone on, but it's also cool to have people who might have like some influence in the Jewish community, especially like in the young professional world. So
I appreciate that. I'm flattered at the thought that I might be influential in some way. We met at an event where I was performing. I work in music. That one was a Shabbat of a cappella music at a shul in New York. And I'm lucky enough to perform with a bunch of groups locally. The one I'm, I guess, known most for is called 613. We release videos at least a few times a year, most of the time on Hanukkah and Pesach. So look out for our Pesach video being released in hopefully just a couple of weeks from when you hear this podcast episode.
Or maybe before you
maybe
hear the
even
podcast.
before?
Probably before you hear the podcast
Sure.
episode. But you can still go back and watch it, even though Pesach will have been over.
Sure. And I wish that I could spoil what it's going to be, but unfortunately I'm sworn to secrecy. I was performing at the time with a group called West Side Simcha. I won't tell you where they're located or where they're based or anything like that, but they are very, very talented. 613's great. West Side Simcha's great. Hiring music for your simcha or concert or anything like that, in my humble opinion, really elevates the atmosphere. So I would definitely recommend contacting your local music provider for some enhancement.
Maybe Nathaniel will give Shticky Situation Nation a discount code if they want to hire him for their simcha. What do you think about that?
I'll certainly work on it. Unfortunately, I don't own either of the groups, but I definitely can speak to those who do. And let's make that code Prime Ribner, PRIMERIBNER. That's also my Instagram, but you do not need to follow me.
Okay. Okay, so should we get into some dating stories?
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely. So we're just going for shticky or cringy dating stories.
Yeah, like anything funny. This is your episode, so
my episode. Oh man, there's pressure.
Whatever. Yeah, no pressure. It's just whatever you want to make of it.
I mean, I definitely have a bunch of stories over the course of my 20s. I guess we can get more into it when we get to the advice column, but certainly lucky to have had all of these experiences who shape what I hope will be a very successful marriage going forward. But there are a few, you could call them episodes that have stuck out. One that I can remember probably about 5 to 6 years ago, whether it was through apps or through real life, was interested in a particular woman who I knew some of my friends. I asked my friends. They said, "Yeah, definitely go for it. If she's interested, she's great. That's awesome. I recommend it. Why not try it?" All the things you usually hear from your friends. And I asked her out. We met up at the ferry on 34th Street that goes to Brooklyn or down the eastern coast of Manhattan. And my plan was to go to Greenpoint, which is a really cool area in Brooklyn, really right across the water. And we met, as soon as we met up, it was so great to see her. And we were walking to the ferry, and I think by the end of the 10 minutes that we had gotten to the area to board the ferry, I realized that this was not going to be a good date. This was not a good match. Everything that my friends had said was wrong. And it was, once you're getting on a boat, it's very hard to get off. So we get on the ferry. I'm kind of annoyed that I'm spoiling the rest of my night, but I decided to make the most of it. And we went to Greenpoint. We went, I think, to a kosher vegan restaurant. We had a nice time. By the time the sun had gone down, we go back to the ferry port, and we were running to catch the ferry that goes, again, directly across the water back to Manhattan, and I thought the date would end. Unfortunately, in our haste, we actually got on the wrong ferry that was going in the opposite direction. So not only was this bad date continuing, but it was multiplying in terms of time, because we were stopping at all of those other stops in Brooklyn and then downtown Manhattan, and we had to sort of get off of the ferry and then get back on and explain that we didn't need to buy new tickets. I don't need to go into it too much, but it was just very, very long. One thing that I forgot to add was that at the beginning of the date, as if it wasn't bad enough, I had arrived outside her building, and when she came out, she saw that I had headphones. I wear very bulky headphones. My friends know that. It's something I've done for a long time. I'm working on changing and getting true, earphones that are more portable, that sound good. I'm sort of an audiophile.
Yeah, he is. He came in here, I put the microphones on, and he had to test all the audio. Already sent me links for new microphones.
Yeah, I want to be involved. I want to help the podcast in any way that I can. Any sort of level of expertise that I have, I want to help out sticky situations.
You could be on the team. This is our team right here.
I'm happy to join the team. Hi, team.
We have one more other team member who never responds to my texts. She's my intern.
I love it. And I love that there's a live studio audience here. It's really fun. But anyway, so when she had come out, she saw my headphones and she said, "Oh, those are like big and bulky and you don't have a coat or anything. Should we put it in my apartment?" So right off the bat, I was like, wow, like that she must like me if she thinks that we're going to end up there, I guess, at the end. Or who knows? Or who knows? I have no idea. But we end up literally going up to the apartment. I put the one item down. So fast forward again, we're back in Manhattan. I think this was in Murray Hill or something like that. And we have to go up to get the headphones. And again, you can put in any sort of excuse there, but again, this is not a good date. It's not going well, and now you just keep adding and adding and adding to it.
And now you're going up to her apartment.
Now I'm going to the apartment. I'm not really sure what to do. I know that there isn't going to be a date 2, much less a 3 or 4, and I'm always on the team of try to give something an extra shot, and especially if you're a little bit younger and you're just trying to feel out how dating goes. But yeah, so we ended up hanging out in the apartment for a little bit. I didn't know what was going on, and then leaving, and that sort of was the end of the date. And I sort of went back to my friends and said, I can't believe you recommended this person. We have nothing in common. We did not get along. I mean, we made the most of it. We were definitely cordial, but it was a 3 or 4 hour date. And I certainly didn't plan any more first dates that involved ferries or boats or anything like that.
Yeah. No, a first date, that's more... The key, I think, to a first date is, like, something that you can add on to if it's going well, but also something that, like, you can leave if
100%.
It's not.
100%. And I do have another story where I did learn from that. And again, for guys, especially younger guys, you don't really know what you're doing. There's so many stereotypes, whether it's, oh, you should go for coffee, or no, if you go for coffee, that's too short, or you're not spending enough and you're not going to make a good impression. And then you have the other party that says, well, you should really impress the person by taking them to a nice dinner. But a lot of times you're not allowing for, let's say, the girl or no matter who it is to have that out at a certain point. So this story is really a lot shorter, but I went to a bar on the east side. It's called D-Tut. I hope it still exists. I don't know. But what's really cool is that they serve s'mores. The catch is that the marshmallows that they have are not kosher. So if you want to really make it a great night, you have to bring your own kosher marshmallows. The background to this date is that I was very close with someone in college. I actually sang with them. And this girl was engaged to a guy that I had not met, and this was his sister. So when I guess matched with her on Hinge or something like that, I asked her, I said, do you think this would be a good idea? You're sort of getting a theme here. She said, yeah, great idea. Why not? Right? And when somebody says, why not, they could be literal, or it could be, they don't think it's a great idea, but why would you ever get in the way of a potential positive, which I don't really agree with, as evidenced at least by these stories. So anyway, we get there. I, of course, forgot about the kosher marshmallows. I don't even know what her level of kashrut or shmirat Shabbat is. And we definitely sat there from, let's say the date started at 8 o'clock. We sat down at 8. We left the bar at 9 o'clock. And I don't think there were more than 50 to 60 sentences in the entire date. It was a lot of absolutely prying for her to say anything. And then, again, I immediately went to the person who had recommended her to me, or at least had approved it. And I said, basically, what the heck were you saying? This person doesn't speak. And you know that I speak, and that I have a lot of interests. I like to, talk about a lot of different things, art, sports, pop culture, on and on and on. And she said, oh, well, this person takes a really long time to warm up. I genuinely don't think that was the case. I think it was just a bad match. And I definitely can rant about the situations with friends recommending and things like that. But that at least was one of those dates where it started at one point, it was over after an hour, and I still had the rest of the night for whatever I wanted to do. I definitely was not trapped. It was just the waste of an hour as opposed to a waste of an evening.
Honestly, sometimes the waste of an hour is still a waste of an hour. I don't know. I feel like I get pressured to say yes to people a lot, and I finally stopped doing it. Like, I had a matchmaker pressure me into, accepting a match, and she's like, what's the harm in a phone call? But no. Do you know how many, even for a 20-minute phone call, it's still a waste of 20 minutes. And, 20 minutes in my life is pretty, valuable.
It adds up, for sure.
It adds up. So, I'm with you. No, it's frustrating. Thank God you found someone and you're engaged and you don't have to do this anymore.
Thank God. And I've always sort of been more on the organic train, where I guess a lot of the dates that I preferred to do, and I hope people are lucky enough to have, are just when you meet someone, you have a connection. It doesn't need to be through an app. It doesn't need to be through a recommendation from someone. Obviously, we need all of them in order to, reach that goal. But certainly, I met my fiance when I was actually working on a Shabbat similar to the one that we met on. And I said, I had made an effort to talk to her throughout the weekend, even though I kept making jokes that I was part of the help. And in our circles, thank goodness we get treated pretty well. Not exactly famous the way you might be making it out, but certainly not, we're almost never eating in the back room the scraps of whatever the guests are having. Either way, throughout the Shabbat, I didn't come on too strong, I don't think, but she certainly knew that I was going to contact her after Shabbat. And I said, what are you doing tomorrow? And she said, I'm moving to Philadelphia. So that was sort of awkward, and I wasn't sure what to do, and I was sad about it. But I maintained contact with her. And our first date was, speaking of trapping yourself, driving up from Maryland to New York, and I offered to stop in Philadelphia and pick her up and take her home instead of having her take the train to Newark. And she agreed, and it wasn't always super smooth sailing from there, but that definitely showed something, I think, for her, and here we are.
Wow, that's cool.
It's an interesting first date, but that's only a 2-hour drive, even a little bit less depending on where you're coming from, but certainly worth it in the end.
So you just told this random girl who you had just met that you would give her a ride for a 2-hour drive, not even knowing if she would get in the car and you would hate her?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I like to think that I knew her a little bit. I had a few conversations with her. I actually spoke more with her family, her immediate family, and her cousins over the course of the weekend. She's a little bit more introverted than I am. And that was also sort of not an evil strategy, but certainly a good one. If a single girl's family likes a single guy and they've met them organically just in the same way that she has, they're likely to say, oh, what about this guy? He seemed nice. He seemed like he cares. Her uncle actually came on very strong, but shout out David. But I told him as soon as he asked me if I had noticed her, I said I very much had noticed her and that I was going to take care of it and did not need any extra help.
Wow.
And our l'chaim was at his house. So.
Wow, that's so nice.
Yeah.
I guess him coming on too strong was a good thing.
It didn't hurt. He came up to me and said how much he enjoyed watching The Voice, which is in its 20-something season, and that he liked watching it with his daughter, and he was asking me about the ins and outs of it, and I just told him whatever I could in terms of the singing ability and things like that. But people really like music. I mean, the fact that the parents of the bar mitzvah boy decided to put the single girls at the table with the singers, I thought was an interesting choice, but it ended up working out this time around. It happened to be that there were 4 male singers on that job. 3 of them were married. I was the only one who was not. And I chose my seat strategically.
Nice.
So I wanted to ask you, I feel like you asking me to be here is not necessarily just because I'm a person or just because we met and I may have broken down some of the way that music works at that Young Professionals event. Maybe there's another reason why you may have asked me to be here?
Oh, yeah, there is. But I think maybe we should take a break to hear a word from our sponsors.
Yes.
Before we get into it, and then I'll let you guys know. Okay, we'll be right back.
Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Are you tired of swiping on dating apps? Tired of guessing whether the cute guy or girl you keep seeing around is Jewish and or single? Then you need to run, not walk, to join Corona Crush. Corona Crush is a Jewish organization working to create Jewish couples always. Corona Crush has over 30 confirmed engagements, over 22,000 members from all over the world, and has set up over 50,000 speed dates. Join the Corona Crush Facebook group and post yourself or have a friend post you and see who reaches out. Fill out the survey to sign up for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. Corona Crush is 100% free and 100% Jewish. Worst case, you end up with some stories of your own. Best case, you find the love of your life. Try it out today. Here on Sticky Situations, we tend to focus on bad dating stories, but sometimes dates do go well and lead to proposals and weddings. Who would have thought? And what do all of those require, you might be asking? Well, the answer is flowers. Who doesn't want flowers from someone they've been seeing? Don't forget, flower petals and bouquets needed for proposals. And that's even before all the flowers that go into weddings. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Primrose Flower Shop. In my opinion, Primrose is the coolest flower shop around and has the best customer service to fulfill all of your floral needs. Primrose offers a range of services from your basic bouquets to subscription services where you can get flowers delivered once a week. They deliver all over the tri-state area, including Manhattan. Primrose does weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, and other simchas. I've personally been to a wedding where Primrose did the flowers, and the work they did was beyond gorgeous. Primrose additionally offers in-store proposals, including a romantic setup with candles and music. Primrose is located at 2922 Avenue M in Brooklyn, and the phone number is 929-376-9815. You can also follow Primrose on Instagram at PrimroseNY. So, If you can't get someone out of your head, buy them some flowers from Primrose. They'll either love it or they'll find you really creepy. But regardless, the flowers will be out of this world.
Okay, we're back, everybody. And now I'll tell you guys the story that I have about Nathaniel. And don't worry, it's not my own personal story, although I did have some involvement. So I used to have this friend, and I'm not going to say her name or anything. We are no longer friends. She's married. It's fine. She's definitely not listening to the podcast. We're good. So this was, let's circle back to COVID. Like, very much COVID.
It's not that long ago.
No, but like really, really COVID. Like,
Okay.
like 2020 COVID. Maybe
Sure.
2020, maybe like early 2021 COVID. But no,
years ago.
I think this is like 2020 COVID. It seems like a lifetime ago.
For sure.
So I had this friend, and I don't know, what do we do when we're not really seeing people, we're not really talking to people, we're not meeting people. So we're just like talking about our old stories. This is pre-podcast days, all this, and she like, I think she was coming from somewhere, and she's like, you'll never guess what happened to me on my walk. I just saw someone who I haven't seen in years, and it's just like a funny story from the past. And she tells this story. She's like, yeah, when I was in school, I met this guy, and like, he was flirting with me, he was interested in me, and then he had one of my friends try to set us up. And at the time, she was like super religious, and she's like, he's not religious enough for me. I'm not interested. And like, she was way too religious, went on with her life. Then like a couple years went by, a few years later, a different friend comes to her and asks, she's like, yeah, do you remember that guy? Like, he's interested in you. Like, do you want to go out with him? And she's like, I'm still too religious for him. And over COVID and over this time, she was going through her own religious journey. It's not really my business to tell, but like, she was becoming more modern Orthodox. So she tells me all of this, and I'm like, is he still single? And she's like, I don't know. Let's investigate. So we investigated and didn't see any signs of him being married. I think she probably still, him is Nathaniel, so like, I'll just stop saying him. So she's like, no signs of like Nathaniel being married or anything. I think she looked at your social media. Maybe I did it for her. I don't remember. And maybe she even asked her other friend who knew you. And do you even know who you're talking about?
No, I have zero. Zero clue.
So I was like, okay, so why don't you friend him? Like, see what happens. Like, YOLO. We are sitting at home doing nothing. It's COVID. Like, nothing's going on anyways. You have nothing to lose. Like, friend him, see if he reaches out. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, maybe he won't accept it. Who even knows? So she does. Months later, I think you accepted her friend requests and then messaged her. And at this point, I think it was like 2021 COVID. I was like, at this point, like, I already wasn't like super good friends with her, but she told me about this because like, I was the reason why she like friended you in the first place.
Thank you.
And so she was like telling me about it. And I guess like you contacted her, you guys were talking for a little bit. I think you met up a few times. And she was like, I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. If you guys get married, this is credit on me. This is my idea. But then you ghosted her. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I still don't know who it is. I have no idea. But you're not going to say her name.
Not on the podcast. I'll tell you.
Are there any other details that you can give?
This was in the old neighborhood that we used to live in.
Okay. I didn't even know you used to live there. That's cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't want to give away who this
We
person
met up
was.
in that neighborhood?
Yeah, in a park. I think your apartment was around the corner from hers.
Okay.
I'll tell you her name offline.
I really don't know. Wait, do you want to tell me offline and then have me react?
Oh yeah, I could just tell you and then edit it out.
Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. Okay, bring us back. We're back on.
Yeah, we've been on the whole time. I'll
Okay,
just
we're
edit
back
out
on.
where I said the name.
Okay. So So can you just remind me where the story started, like the earliest point?
This farm sale.
So but you didn't say that.
Yeah, because I didn't want to give away too many details.
Oh, come on. This farm, that's like dating central, this farm sale. That's
This
where
farm
dreams
sale.
come true.
I think you either hit on her at this farm sale or you asked her out at this farm sale.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So now do you remember the story of this happening?
Wow. But you're not friends anymore.
No, she stopped talking to me after I moved.
Maybe she ghosted you because I ghosted her.
Maybe.
So I'm not.
Although I did stalk you for her.
That's
after
nice.
you ghosted her.
I would have to.
She's like, can you go watch his Instagram stories? And I'm like, I have no shame. I'll do it.
Wow.
Which she was over my shoulder watching.
That's crazy. I really forgot. I mean.
Yeah, you autographed a Ystad CD in her apartment. She was my roommate.
I don't even remember where that was. That's wild. Yeah, I thought nothing of it until yeah.
I don't know how much she thought of it anyways. I just thought it was funny.
I think I thought the Facebook was fake because I was like, someone that from like wouldn't have a Facebook or something.
Yeah, but she was less from.
Well, I didn't know that. That's crazy. Yeah, that was weird because like it was very much like a fantasy in my head. Like, oh, remember that? Like the girl next door, like super from that you met in this farm sale, like that was gonna happen. Like, no. And then it was so many years later.
And then it did happen.
And then it did happen.
And then you ghosted her.
But I don't remember why.
I don't know.
Maybe she was scaring me.
She stopped talking to me, so I don't know.
I think she probably scared me. I wonder if I could find it in my phone. Because it wasn't that long ago.
You should do it. Find it in your phone.
By the way, you guys should be able to laugh out loud. If you're having a studio
You
audience.
can laugh. You guys
if you're having
can
a studio
laugh.
audience, you may as well like.
I'm putting commentary. That's my problem.
Yeah, no, you guys can laugh. But they can laugh.
They can laugh. Yeah, you can have emotional reactions. You just can't verbalize any of them. What I assume happened is that I started going on dates with someone and I wasn't going to date this person seriously. Ghosting is almost never a good thing. Mm-hmm. Almost never.
Almost never.
Almost never. Sometimes it's impossible to avoid, but that's what I assume might happen. But honestly, as you could probably figure out, I blocked out most of that. I really thought you were going in a different direction. I thought it was going to be one of a couple of other people.
Okay, so now you have to tell the story that you thought it was going to be.
Well, because there was another person around the corner.
So yeah, so I'm the reason she
Good times.
she reached out to you.
Thank you.
After years.
Listen, like, yeah, I guess it ended semi-well.
In a different world, you guys would have gotten married, and that would have been one of my three.
Yeah, there was...
No way you were going to marry her. No. I don't blame you. It's okay.
I also... Whatever. I'll talk off the record. Okay, that's super fun.
Yeah.
Were you, like, very from at the time?
No.
Okay. But you were
I
friends
haven't
with her
changed.
from Stern?
No, I became friends with her. I knew her sister from Stern, and then I like met her later through her sister, and she just thought I was funny. So she's like, I'm going to be friends with you because you're funny. And I'm like, I like people who think I'm funny.
You are funny.
Thank you.
You could leave that in.
And I don't know. And then we became like good friends. And then we lived together for a little while. And then she stopped talking to me. Yeah, good times.
It's probably okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. I've lived. I've survived.
Like, it's definitely fine.
Yeah. Like, yeah. It's 2 years ago.
Cool.
Almost. Okay.
What else should we talk about?
I want to hear the stories that you thought I was going to tell.
I mean, I've buried them so far deep that even today, when I was trying to think of some of these things, I spoke to some of my friends, and some of the best ones, I guess, in this category in terms of being funny and entertaining, I don't know if it just because I don't have a good memory or because I subconsciously buried them, but it was kind of interesting, like thinking about bad date stories, just because it has been like a few years that I haven't had to think about it, or a year and a half, or whatever it is. But what I basically had two longer relationships in the first part of my 20s, multiple years, 2 different relationships. At different points thought that either one of them would have worked out. Obviously they did not, and I'm not upset about that at all. But after, I think the second one, after waiting for a few weeks or months or whatever it was, I decided to get back in the dating game. And I couldn't get on the same schedule as one girl who I had multiple friends who wanted to set us up. And it was just, we were never single at the same time. So finally, this is the first time I'm going out with someone, and I'm excited. I think we matched on an app, but also I found that more often than not, those things just clarify mutual interests rather than cold meeting someone. It's you sort of know who they are in the scene already, and then you match, and it becomes obvious that you want to eventually go on a date or even just talk and see if there's interest. So I ended up going out with this person, and I was excited about it because I guess I had thought about her over the course of whatever, like a couple of, somewhere in my head, over the couple of years before that. Either way, I wanted to go to this place called Spin. Again, I don't know if it still exists. I haven't been. It's a ping pong bar.
I've heard of it.
I think it's in Chelsea. It's on like 23rd. I had gone there once or twice before, loved it. The thing I love about it, and I don't know if our studio audience members have gone there. You have gone there. So what's the best thing about it? It's that when the ball goes off of the table, you don't have to pick it up, right? There's people walking around
That's sick.
Yeah, they have like these like vacuum sort of things, and they pick up the balls on the floor, and when they get a bunch of them in the vacuum, they dump it into a tub next to everyone's table. And there's so many different tables, you can get drinks. It's a great place to go. It's called Spin. I hope it's still around. I have no idea if it is.
Studio audience says yes. It is.
Studio audience says yes. Okay, great. So I thought, great idea for a first date. You're far enough away that it's not a problem if you're not getting along. You can sort of gauge a competitive spirit or not. There is still a bar if you need it. It's on the darker side, but not too dark. So I wanted to take this person there. Again, I hadn't dated in a while. It had been certainly over a year, maybe 2. So immediately I meet up with this person after she's done with her work. And I should have gotten it at the time, but this person did not put effort into what this was going to be. It kind of seemed like it was just a favor to our mutual friend. But it was very much like after work, we were talking about how much time you want to dedicate to things over the course of the day. It was right after work, so I guess had it not been good or not been extended anyway, that she would still have the evening. Again, I wasn't thinking about these things at the time. So we go to this ping pong bar, we go to Spin, and I didn't call in advance. It had been rented out for a private event. So now you're dealing with a girl who's not interested in the first place, with a big hiccup that this seemingly great plan is gone all of a sudden. So now I have to go to my phone. I have to think about where would be sort of a second choice. I think I was flustered. I think I asked her if she knew of any places in the area. I hope I didn't. But we ended up at a rooftop bar, and it was actually pretty nice. We got delicious drinks. I don't remember where it was. It was probably around Fifth Avenue. We talked about a variety of things. I thought it went well. And it didn't go amazing, but I thought, well, certainly a second date is something that I should ask for. I was very confident about it. I called her the next day. I said I had a great time. And I said, are you interested in going out on Thursday or whatever it was? And her response was, no, I'm not sure why, but no. And I was
That's so rude.
I immediately remember thinking like, it's bad in terms of my ego that I didn't think this was a possibility at all. But also, couldn't you have taken 10 seconds to think of any sort of reason or at minimum an excuse for why?
Even to say it's not a good match.
I mean, it was just no. And I immediately had to pivot from going, oh yeah, no, like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like same page. And I just remember getting off the phone and being like, oh my gosh, like this is really what dating can be like. Like I have been pretty comfortable in those relationships, as bad as breakups after long-term relationships are. I just remember feeling like, oh man, like this could really be like a journey in terms of dating and things like that. And I ended up going out with someone else a few hours after that conversation. And I think that more than anything, that was just to make myself feel better.
It's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, just give myself a little ego boost. But yeah, I will never forget that and the way she made me feel. I also remember that she had gone out with one of my best friends on, I think, 2 or 3 dates. And I didn't see them being a match at all. So I guess Kal V'chomer, if you want to bring that
all the
in.
more so.
It was like, of course. Yeah, all the more so. Of course, like, I'll at least get a second one and see where it goes. It doesn't have to work out or anything. A few months later, I ended up at a friend's Shabbat meal. And she and her apparently serious boyfriend were there. They were engaged soon after, and they're happily married. And I'm very happy for them. But I remember absolutely scolding him in the other room upon arriving, saying, "You didn't tell me this person was going to be there. Like the way they made me feel, etc." And he didn't know, and he told me to basically man up, and it was fine. But that's one of those oh my gosh moments,
Yeah, I think the moral of that one is anybody, if you're going to give an excuse on why you don't want to go out with someone again, at least make it a good one. Even just to say, I don't think we're a good fit, like, that's fine. Don't say, I don't know why, but I don't want to go out again.
Just no. It was just no. And, thank God I recovered from that. And it's okay. Yeah. But when I was speaking to a coworker of mine today, and I said, can you recall any bad date stories that you could remember me telling you about? Literally, I started writing about that when she said, oh, that thing with so-and-so. And I said, yes, we're on the same page about that. The stories that I've told earlier in the episode, or part 1, those were ones that I completely didn't remember until my friends mentioned them.
Wait, I'm so honored that you, did so much research to remember all your stories, that you, asked all your friends.
I asked some of my friends. I have a WhatsApp group with some of my closest friends who talk about dating and things like that.
Do they want to come on the podcast?
They might. I can certainly ask them. But I said, I don't want to misquote anything, but I think you might get a kick out of this. I said in our group, I said, boys, I'm trying to remember some of my bad dating stories. Help a brother out. and they said, should we do a fantasy draft of bad Nathaniel dating stories? And I said, please do. So they started listing a few, and that was enough material for me to come on the podcast and be of use, I hope.
That's so funny. I love that. Yeah, recruit some of them to come on. I'd love to have them.
Absolutely.
The fantasy draft.
Fantasy draft
of Nathaniel's bad dating stories.
Bad dating stories.
Okay. Do you have more stories that you would like to share?
I mean, I have 2, but they're not, I don't know how relevant they are because they were such a long time ago, but I did sort of go down memory lane. And I remember my first dating story, which ended badly and probably scarred me for a very long time, which was that it was my first summer at a camp, a sleepaway camp. And it was the first Shabbat of that month that I was there. And I guess a 7th grade boy, someone I had just met who was very friendly with the girls, came over to me, said, somebody wants to go on a Shabbos walk with you. I didn't even know what that was. I said, sure, fine. I probably ended up telling that girl my entire life story, however short my experience had been by that point.
Your 7th grade self?
Sorry?
Your 7th grade self?
Yeah. I mean, because that's all I knew how to say. I just said everything. And I remember 2 older kids coming over and sort of making me feel uncomfortable, and I ended up running away. And for the rest of that month, I was just harassed by her friends. Women mature faster than men. And I just remember hiding in my bunk, not knowing how to deal with anything, and just avoiding at all costs. So that, again, that probably really set me back.
Where's she now?
I think she's happily married.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the only other one, again, just these are the iconic stories, not even really dating stories necessarily and not so relevant, but just sort of like along the path of trying to digest the way things work in the dating world. It was my first month at the religious university that I attended.
You could say the school if you want, or if you don't.
No, it's more fun not to.
It's fun.
It could be one of 3 schools.
Three?
And I was in the local a cappella group. It was our very first gig, and we performed. I think it was just the national anthems. You know what it was? I just realized what it was. It was a program for the recently returned Gilad Shalit.
Oh.
And the university was doing a program with him in attendance. I remember making eye contact with him. Of course, I didn't know much about politics or anything, any current events, but I remembered it being a big deal. I was 19 years old. We performed the national anthems. There were no solos. There was no anything. There were no moments of, oh, wow, that kid's really good at singing or whatever it is. It was just somebody from my community, which one of our studio members definitely knows. Tall, skinny, with bright red hair. He comes over to me, or he texted me or found my number and said, somebody's interested in you. And I said, first of all, we don't really talk. And second of all, what are you talking about? Somebody's interested in me. And he said, you performed at that event. And there was a girl who goes to the sister school who was in attendance and she wants to go on a date with you. And I said, how can she want to go on a date with me? I didn't talk to anyone there. And I just remember thinking, like, is this superficial or is this natural, or do people just like artists? Or if you
Girls like guys with good voices.
I'm saying even if you can call it an artist.
Not all girls.
Not
These
all
two girls do.
You couldn't discern the voices. It wasn't like there were any like.
Yeah, but you were on stage, so that means you have a good voice.
I definitely remember my 19-year-old self thinking like that would be absurd. And even to a degree until now, when I was telling a story about how I met my fiance, I was very cynical about the idea of, oh, the mother of the bar mitzvah boy is going to sit the potentially single guys with the, honestly, like royal family's daughters because they sing, like, and that makes them eligible for our, like, to be in our family. Like, I still think that's interesting. An interesting choice. I don't know if I were in that situation, if I would want to sit those two people together, but I certainly hope that my future in-laws and the extended family see value in it, as opposed to what you would think of in terms of someone who's making like a ton of money, or I don't know, or a psychologist, or a doctor, or a lawyer. In my head, it's very difficult for me to put singer on that level, but people
but you were
so
in
often
school.
Do. When?
How did she know you weren't studying to become a doctor or a lawyer?
You're saying like recently?
No, like when the girls saw you performing at school.
Oh, I was saying even now. Even now. Yeah, like.
This is true. I mean, listen, my seminary girl self put the number one priority in finding a husband, someone with a good voice. I've since given up on a lot of those things, and I just need a guy who exists.
I'm saying, don't you understand how ridiculous that sounds? Like someone with a good voice, like so you could hear like a nice Asian Chayil for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's an attractive
that
quality.
should not be your deal breaker, ladies.
It's not a deal breaker. It's not.
It was on your list.
It was on my list. My list wasn't a deal breaker list. It was like, this is what I'm looking for in a guy. It's not number one. Obviously, money is number one. But like...
Okay, so we're on the same page.
But like, I'm just saying, like, a guy who... certain girls notice a guy with a good voice. So... Speaking of which, we know that you are engaged, and probably a lot of your friends are married. But if you have any single friends who have good voices, for me or our studio audience member... Either of us would love a guy with a good voice, preferably one with a job also, but like
yeah, and I mean I can certainly keep an eye out. One of the things I wrote down in my preparation for this podcast was just be prepared to talk about the shidduch crisis, or there just being really a noticeable amount of great available women and not enough men that fit that description in order to match them. And you realize it more when you're in a committed relationship and you see friends and things like that. And I don't know if anyone here has an answer, but I just do my best to keep my eyes and ears open.
Honestly, if you guys want to listen to this previous episode of the podcast, we do discuss the shut-off crisis and how it's a scam.
I'll have to listen to it.
It's a scam, yeah. Listen to the previous episode. Yeah, the shut-off crisis is a scam, and it's just trying to take female power away by telling us that there's not enough guys for us. Yeah.
But I don't know if there are enough guys. I'm racking my brain trying to find great guys for these amazing women. I don't know.
It's true.
I hope it's fake, but it seems real to me.
I don't know. I need to do more research into the fact that it might be fake.
I need to do more research in solving it, whether it's real or fake.
It's a new concept for me that it might be fake. But if you want to do research into finding eligible men for single girls, my podcast team and I are definitely open to being guinea pigs.
I was actually going to
just warn them that I'll tell stories about them on the podcast.
Fair enough. I was actually going to say that just in terms of art and people being attracted to artists or people who deal with media or communication, it is an attractive skill. I get it. I get it to a degree. But one thing that I noticed when I was listening to this show is your intro stuck out to me because you say in every podcast, if you want to date me or someone else on the show, that you should reach out. Immediately it jumped out to me that that's kind of obvious. Like if someone's listening to this podcast, it's impressive, it's interesting, it's something that you're doing. Just the fact that you have the podcast, I think, is a reason why somebody would want to reach out. So I don't know if that's just my opinion. It was like, if I hear like this podcast and this is so cool, like somebody in the community decides to go out and do this, it sort of speaks for itself. And I don't think you necessarily need to say that.
Okay, so I should stop trying to pimp myself out.
I think what I'm saying is that the fact that you have this outlet already does that for you.
True. I could take that out of my
you can do whatever you want.
beginning.
I'm just telling you the way I perceived it.
Okay. I'll take that under advisement.
The guest thing I understand, but obviously only if they say they're single.
Yeah,
I don't know
only
if
my
most
single
people,
guests.
most guests are single. I don't know.
It's a mix.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a mix because I definitely do like to hear people who are engaged, married, in committed relationships have gone through the dating process. I mean, some people marry the first person that they date, but like most people, at least around my age, have dated quite a bit, have stories, so.
Right. I joked with you that when you asked me to be on the podcast, I said, well, you don't even know me. Maybe I don't have any bad stories. And you laughed and said, yes, you do. And I said, yes.
Because I had a story about you.
Well, there you go. I didn't even put it together until now. But yeah, when you reach a certain age, I guess they sort of accumulate. But hopefully it all works out in the end.
Yeah, we hope. We like to hope sometimes. But until we get there, we have this podcast to tell all of our bad stories. So, Nathaniel, do you have any more stories, any more conversation topics that you would like to discuss before we wrap up the episode?
That's all I got for now. If you ever want me on the show again, I'm around somewhat. I am moving out of the New York area in a few months.
Wow.
But whether it's before then or whether it's in a few years, depending on how long you're doing this, maybe you'll be doing it forever, no matter what the status is or who you're living with. But I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming and being a guest. So before we wrap up, we have our ending segments. So Nathaniel, we've been giving advice throughout the episode as we do, but can you give my listeners one piece of dating advice?
Sure. Who you marry and what you do for work are the most important things in your life, at least when you zoom out. And that's advice that my grandfather would give to me pretty much any time that we would talk. And that will stick with me for a while. So you definitely want to get it right, even if you have bumps along the road. So don't settle and take your time. And when it's right, you will know.
Okay. I like that. It means I should probably quit being an accountant. Maybe, guys, blow up the podcast. I could do this full time instead. So, okay. And then the last final piece. Nathaniel, what's your Real Housewife tagline? He's like motioning no. Like he knew this was coming.
Here's what I got. Patient, pop star, puppy dog. There's some alliteration for you English majors.
I like it. I'm not an English major, but I still like it.
Were you an accounting major?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm a musician and I was an English major. I didn't take a single college music class.
I didn't take any regular classes at school. I only took business classes. I took no science.
No math?
Only accounting math.
Okay. We'll take it.
Yeah. And no English. No, I did take English. That was the only one I had to take. Those were my worst
Assets,
grades.
liabilities, capital.
Yeah.
Accounting 101.
Debits and credits. Okay. Well, Nathaniel, thank you for coming onto the episode. This has been so fun. I hope you had fun.
I did. My pleasure. This was awesome. Glad we got to do this.
Yeah. And Sticky Situation Nation, you'll catch me next time. Bye, everybody.